So apparently, I've been getting the name of the channel wrong the entire time. It's Mikeburnfire. That's actually a sentence. I don't know how I got this wrong. Mike, fire, burn? That doesn't make any sense. It makes you sound like a caveman. Wait, is that right? No, Mike, burn, fire. Right? Fire, burn. Ha! Anyway, guys, it's Paul, combat veteran, MMA fighter, YouTuber, and today we are back checking out another one of these classic Mike, burn, fire stories. This is UCP, Camo, and Mortared. Let's get into it.
You ever notice stupid people have a smell?
No. I don't go up to people and smell them and go, "Wow, you smell dumb."
No.
Yeah, I feel like this is the opening to something horrible. I know where this ends. I don't know. I don't think I want to see where this ends.
I'm just saying, like, stupid people usually smell bad.
Well, if they're stupid, they probably don't know enough about personal hygiene.
But I also kind of want to believe that stupid emits a smell.
I don't know. I don't smell anything right now when I'm with you.
I'm just saying, like, the next time you're waiting in line at a gas station or something, and the guy in front of you is like, "Yeah, I just spent $75 on scratch-off lottery tickets, and I won $13. That's a net gain." Give him a sniff. He'll smell terrible.
I think, yeah, this is probably right. He'll smell like chewing tobacco and alcohol. I think it's actually more likely. We actually know that there's a lot of things that are environmental that actually impact like IQ. And again, I get it. IQ is like loosely correlated with like actual intelligence. But it's the only metric we have that's sort of systematic. Anyway, but when you grow up poor, grow up in a really stressful environment, grow up in a really unstable environment, grow up with neglectful parents, right? Those are all things that we know will impact the IQ of children long term. And if you're the subset of the population that isn't taught as children how to properly care for themselves, which is a skill you have to be taught, right? Human beings aren't born instinctively knowing shower, soap, shave, deodorant, right? That's not an instinct. You have to be taught that those things. And as a parent, you have to stay on your kids to instill in them that you have to do these things every day, right? This is I mean, it's sort of parenting 101, but it's not, it requires, well, parenting. So the fact that those two things, right, having poor hygiene and being neglected in many other ways, or having a poor home life as a child, could in fact manifest as both terrible personal hygiene and really poor decision making as an adult. Again, does it mean that you're like a bad, malevolent, or stupid person? I think that's almost unfair, because it's like maybe you could have been a smart person. Like, maybe you could have been a genius, but, like, your parents really stuck it to you. Or the universe, right? Maybe your parents want to do the right thing and just couldn't, right? Anyway, the point is, he may not be as wrong as he thinks he is.
Probably smell like chewing tobacco and alcohol.
Oh, God, probably. I had a squad leader in the military who smelled like bad Taco Bell meat. It was like Taco...
I mean, listen, that's superfluous. It's Taco Bell meat. It's all bad. It's barely even meat. I think they actually almost lost a lawsuit for calling it meat, because it's 51% like soy collagen or something.
Bell meat that has gone bad. And
it's all bad. It's all bad. It's Taco Bell meat. It's already gone bad. That's why they sell Taco Bell.
And
that's a joke and a parody. Please don't sue me, Taco Bell.
Always would end up running at the front of formation anytime we would run. And the person who was right behind him would always end up being like, "Oh no, leg cramps. I'm going to fall out to the back of the formation." So it would just be everyone that was behind him would just end up rotating until... Just keep rotating. Person in the front, all the way to the back. Person in the front, all the way to the back.
I don't know if you were trained for this, but in Poolee training, we had Indian runs. Now I know what they were preparing us for.
Yeah, it was pretty much that.
It's exactly that.
I think he got yelled at by our chain of command because there were so many people that went to our leadership and were like, "Yeah, Sergeant X smells like rancid taco meat. Can you make him take a shower?"
Yes. Yes, you can. So, okay, I have my own story. I'm just going to tell it now. So, there was an NCO who I'm sure has since retired. So I don't think he's out there still. So there's this NCO who I heard about long before he ever came to my unit, right? And people joked about the horseshoe. And the horseshoe was because he had like yours truly, right? He had male pattern baldness on the top of his head, but it was completely bald, right? Completely and absolutely bald on the top of his head. He had maybe 3 wisps of hair remaining. But he still would go to the barber and request a high and tight. Now I want you to observe, if you will. If I were to do this as a high and tight, it would go from skin and get thicker and thicker and thicker and thicker, and then nothing, right? Like the biggest plot twist in the history of haircuts, right? But the result was that there was a U of hair around his head at all times. And the entire battalion roasted this dude, who I had, again, never met. He had been gone like a year and a half. He had gone to Korea. And then, when I was an executive officer, he rotated back from Korea to my battalion, to my company, to my operations cell, because military police companies have their own operations cell, because, of course. So now I have this NCO, and he is in my operations cell, and I am hearing about it from non-stop, about the U. I'm hearing about it from my peers. I'm hearing about it from other soldiers. I'm hearing about it from like civilians who are like, "Ooh, what's with that guy with the U haircut?" Like, it looked really janky. And so finally, I am like, I can't listen to this anymore. I cannot do it. And I looked it up in the regulations, and the regulations say that they have this caveat at the end. They specify you cannot have this kind of haircut and that kind of haircut and the other kind of haircut. But then it says you cannot have any other haircut deemed eccentric by your chain of command. And I was like, I got him, right? No one in the army thought they had to regulate that you're not allowed to look like a Benedictine monk, because they thought surely no person in this millennium would want to look like that. But they hadn't met this guy. And so, but I was like, I gave a loophole. They installed a loophole for then Lieutenant Paul. And so finally I pulled him into my office. I'm like, hey, Sergeant X. I'm not going to give you his name. Preserve the guilty. Sergeant X, listen. I, as your XO, am deeming your haircut eccentric per the regulations. I need you to get it cut in a professional-looking military way. I don't care what it is. It just has to be professional. You cannot have the U shape of hair around your head. And what he said next shocked me to my core. But actually, he's like, Lieutenant, people give me crap about my haircut constantly, but you are the only officer who has ever actually asked me. Actually, I had not asked him. I had ordered him, but I gave him a pass. As the only one who has ever asked me to actually get it cut. And in my mind, I had 2 thoughts. I was like, holy crap. This is the bare bones minimum of leadership. For an army that deems it unprofessional to put your hands in your pockets, which is what pockets were designed for, that is unprofessional. But this dude skated for a decade with a horseshoe on his head? I was like floored. But sure enough, he came in the next day, and that dude had buzzed his hair. He looked like a regular soldier. And here's the thing, he just looked better, objectively better. And what made things even weirder is that as long as he was under I wasn't the commander. As long as I was his supervisor, he kept his hair to my regulations. And then the day that I went to battalion, that dude put the U back on. And I heard about it. And then I gave their XO crap. I was like, how's the U going? What do you think you are going to do? Anyway, that's my story. Let's let him finish.
Well, apparently he was homeless for a very long period of time.
Surprisingly, a lot of military men are.
Yeah.
But none of the branches teaches you how to manage your money or have a good
No,
social
oh
life.
God, no. Oh God, why would they teach you any of that stuff? Just get drunk, who cares?
Okay, the battalion does have a financial advisor. Every battalion should take one person. It's usually the chaplain, but sometimes it's another responsible or respected senior NCO. They send them to a financial management course, and where they teach budgeting and paying your bills and automated, and just sort of like the things that, again, your parents should sort of try to instill in you on some level, right? But the idea, usually, you don't get sent to the battalion financial counselor until you've already, screwed up. And, of course, the classic screw-up is you're 19 years old, someone's paying you $15,000 a year, and the car dealer off post tells you that they will lease you a Dodge Charger for a meager 50% of your paycheck. And, because the Army's letting you live and eat for free, you go, this seems like a completely reasonable call. And so you buy a Charger, and then you try to insure it as a 19-year-old soldier, and you realize it's the remaining 50% of your paycheck, meaning that if you want to put gas in the tank, you cannot. And this is what's called, in game theory, the soldier's dilemma.
Yup.
The most scared I've ever been. Probably when I crapped myself sitting on a toilet. To be fair, the toilet is the best place to crap yourself, but I crapped myself because we started getting mortared.
Oh! Did the fear cause you to void your bowels?
I was sitting in a porta potty. It was very, very hot. I just have to do this as fast as possible so I don't have to spend any time in this sweltering porta potty.
Porta potties in the desert are actually very, very hot.
Yeah, they're like microwave ovens. They're the most uncomfortable place on Earth.
They are incredibly hot because they're very stinky because there's no ventilation. And usually when they come to clean out the porta potties, they just blast the inside of the porta potty with a power washer, so it's always humid in there.
Yeah, man, wow, nothing really changed. Well, he was in 2008, which he actually was in the comment section of the last video, which I appreciate. Yeah, so they're awful. They were awful in 2010.
And there's never any hand soap.
So I'm sitting in the porta potty. I'm trying to make my business as quick as possible. And then I hear the incoming siren. The moment I think I'm going to want to be quicker, a mortar impacted, I would say, within a couple hundred yards. The pressure wave of the mortar hitting caused the entire porta potty to flex.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right there, if it's a 60 millimeter mortar, a couple hundred yards will not flex the porta potty. That's like a couple dozen yards.
Oh!
There was no shrapnel that was near me. Mm-hmm. I wasn't technically in any danger, but the walls of the porta potty went woof and flexed after the mortar went off. I no longer had to use the bathroom at that point, and that wasn't because I had tensed up. That was because my bowels had evacuated into the porta potty instantly. I have quite literally had the shit scared out of me. The moment the porta potty flexed, I went, no time to wipe, I gotta go! And just ripped my pants up as fast as I could, kicked the door to the porta potty open, and ran towards the nearest cover I could find, holding my pants up because I did not have time to do all the buttons on my fly or redo my belt.
You're gonna get a rash if you don't wipe.
The nearest cover I could find was an MRAP, mine-resistant, ambush-protected vehicle. The doors for these things weigh about 500 to 600 pounds. They're really heavy. I ripped that thing open like it was nobody's business. Hopped straight up in...
Okay, yes, the doors are that heavy, but they're designed to be easy to open, right? They're on hinges, right? So, it's like the giant doors to a cathedral, right? Yes, they're too heavy for you to lift, but you don't lift them. You swing them open. I get it. It's dramatic effect, and it does help the story. Inside an MRAP is the perfect place to take cover. However, you know what the least good place to take cover is? Well, second to least good place to take cover is under an MRAP. And that is because when your base is being attacked, often people run to the MRAPs, get in them, and drive them to their base defense position. Which means that if you are underneath the MRAP in a not-so-strategic place, you will get squished. And actually, that was a real problem. They had to ban people. For us, it was also people who were on patrol and would sleep next to the vehicles, which is a logical place to sleep because the inside of an armored vehicle gets really hot, right? It's a tiny box with like 6-inch ceramic and metal plating surrounding it on all sides. It warms up very, very quickly. So you would want to sleep outside of it, but not so far outside that you can't quickly get back in, right? And so I solved this problem by sleeping on the MRAP. I slept on the hood. Plus, the engine would radiate heat throughout the night, and you would be nice and toasty. But often you would sleep under the tire, right? Because that has a logic to it, right? It's providing you partial cover from an explosion. You're covered on like one side, but when people would drive off, a couple soldiers actually died because they were run over. So the moral of the story is sleeping on the Humvee is probably a better bet.
Into the vehicle, sat down, and slammed the door behind me. And I look over, and there's a sergeant who is sitting in the vehicle as well. And he's just smoking a cigar.
First time getting mortared, huh?
Shit, huh? They said, yup.
That's funny. Okay, the guy smoking the cigar, that is the norm in every single base. The siren goes off, and then everyone else saunters casually to they actually would install in almost every base concrete bunkers that you would just sort of mosey into, and you would chill until someone sounded the all clear, right? It was really boring because it happened all the time, and most of the time, by the time the siren went off, like in Zach's case, the siren's like barely ahead of the mortar itself.
He goes, don't have to shit anymore? And I went, nope. And he goes, you forgot your hat. And I went, shit. I'm not going back for it. And he goes, I don't blame you. And then neither of us said another word to each other for the rest of the time we were in there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty funny. Yeah, the other thing is you always have to wear a hat if you're outdoors and not undercover. So not having your hat is something like a sergeant major would poo-poo at you. Though, to be fair, immediately after a mortar attack, you get a total uniform pass. That mortar attack, any attack really, you can see footage sometimes of people, soldiers defending bases who were obviously like asleep and who got woken up, and so they'll put on, and I've done this, put on their IBA, put on their Kevlar, grab a rifle, and get to their battle, I say battle stations, their like base defense positions, right? Whatever they had, whatever their role was. And I've done that. I was in the gym, right? We got there was a certain command for a mortar attack, which just meant sort of like, okay, we don't need to change our posture, everybody hunker down. And then there was like a ground-based attack or a direct fire attack. And that was like, ugh. So yeah, I was in the gym, that went off. I remember everyone paused, and then the gym quickly cleared out. And I went and I got my IBA, and I went to our vehicles, and we started directing our vehicles and getting into our defensive positions and doing the right thing. But yeah, I did the whole thing in like Army workout clothes, they call them PTs, physical training uniforms, which would never be even marginally acceptable anywhere else.
Why do the Army uniforms always look like garbage? The Marines had the greens, and we had the deserts.
Yeah, you had deserts and woodland. And they look great.
Yeah.
They look great. They work good. The one thing I will say about the Marines is their uniforms always look amazing.
Damn straight.
They have the best looking uniforms out of any branch of the military.
Indisputably. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Even their dress uniforms, I think dress uniforms are freaking stupid because it's not the 1600s and nobody cares about dress uniforms anymore.
I know.
Yeah. That's also a fact.
Never even had the dress blues. I don't know if you know this, but
You never had the dress uniform?
I never had the dress blues. They used to issue them when you got out of boot camp.
Yeah.
And then there was a brief window in 2007 where they didn't do that.
Why?
I guess they expected you to buy it yourself. They were low on funds. Any number of reasons. Who knows?
Yeah, that sounds like the military we all know.
Historically, the Marines are pretty much always out of money, so that would make sense. Getting back on topic here.
Yeah, the Marines are always broke. And, the Army also is really good, the military in general, of having this, like, someone else will take care of it mentality, where you arrive at your unit and somebody's like, huh, like, you didn't learn how to do X? or they cut the budget and they're just like, your unit will teach you this. Like, they started doing that for, I think it's like Green Berets and language training, which is weird because that's essential to their entire role in the military as the premier, like, indigenous force liaisons. So, and trainers. So, like, not teaching, like, being like, oh, you'll pick up Arabic when you get to your unit. Like, no, you won't. That's ridiculous. Why would you not train them on their language in the schoolhouse?
I think that some general in the Army saw a bunch of these Marines walking around the Pentagon, and they were wearing these cool digital patterns, and they went, I just watched the movie The Matrix. I like digital things. I want digital uniform for all Army. Army smart. Army get digital. Be future. Like how for that very short period of time, the Army's motto was an army of one, which is not really conducive when you're trying to have an organization that's built around everyone working together.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
You're all each individually armies of one.
Yeah, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. That got changed real quickly to Army Strong.
Army strong, Army smack.
Army low like terrorist.
Yeah, that's about right.
So the Army got these digital uniforms, and they were such shit.
Oh my god. Okay, I gotta see what his complaints are, because I have my own litany of complaints about these uniforms. The pattern was called UCP, but the uniform was the ACU, the Army Combat Uniform.
You're talking about the teal colored digital camo?
Yes, the teal colored digital camo that blends in with that
Oh god, this is iconic. Look at this.
famous picture of a couch and nothing else. It blends in with nothing. UCP is the camo pattern, which stands for Universal Camo Pattern, because it universally doesn't blend in with jack fucking shit. The camo pattern that Doc Friday has on is a better camo pattern than UCP.
You seem to be a big fan of Flecktarn in general.
Because it's a good camo pattern and it works. There's a reason the German military has used Flecktarn since 1980.
Well, that's because it aligns with the German, like, ecosystem, you know? Literally, like, that's what Germany looks like. So if you're a military whose primary mission is defending Germany, then logically, that's the camo pattern you should have, right?
Until 2017.
Oh, did they change it recently?
Most militaries are just going to Multicam now, because Multicam just seems to work with pretty much everything. Unlike UCP, which the three colors on UCP...
Which, the irony, of course, being that Multicam is basically the exact same thing as BDU pattern, right? The forest green BDU pattern, just with a few more colors.
We are freshly poured concrete, sand, a color that doesn't exist in nature. That's it.
It might actually work if you're in some kind of urban desert environment.
Here's a fun experiment. Put a UCP jacket on one of your friends. Have them stand 3 blocks away from you in a city. And then have a bunch of people walk around. You'll still be able to pick them out. You'll be like, oh, look at that dipshit wearing UCP down there.
Well, of course you will. If you're trying to spot somebody in a crowd that stands out, the only person wearing camo is going to stand out.
The way camo is supposed to work is it disrupts the shape of a person.
It's supposed to break up the silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with UCP is the squares are all too damn small, so at a distance, you just look like a big teal blob. And they're not the same color. It's the background anywhere.
So, okay. There's a really interesting video that I think you should definitely check out. It's by a channel called Uniform History, who has these awesome breakdowns of, well, the history of military uniforms. And his look at the UCP is really cool because the Army held really well-run trials of camo patterns. And they settled, actually, on a desert brush, right? So like a desert with some green integrated into it, like a desert tan with green. It looked a little bit like, I think they call it like Rhodesian brush, but it looked really cool. And frankly, going into Iraq and Afghanistan, it would have been a perfect pattern. But towards the end of the trials, the Army generals, as he points out, began to seethe that the Marines looked like they were fighting in the future and the Army looked like it was fighting in the past. And so they decided to randomly just select this other camo, this UCP. Didn't hold trials, just decided it was the winner. right? Sort of like having the team that wins the Super Bowl not be the team that performed best in the playoffs, but fighting them all the way to the Super Bowl, and then just sort of the commissioner decides that the Browns are the new Super Bowl champions. All right, it was completely irrational and exactly what you would expect from trying to run a uniform trial, but the people in charge are trained to, be infantry combat leaders, right? You get what you hire for in the military, and so all that to say, right? The Army did everything right and then promptly shot itself in the foot, which is pretty much par for the course.
There was one other time that I did see it work, and that was when infantry in Iraq would wear the exact same pair of ACUs for 2 months.
Oh my God, that's so weird that he saw this too. Yes, you would have to wear it for 2 straight months, and the neutral color would pick up the ambient dirt. Like when we left country, my ACUs looked exactly like Multicam. They had blended. They had absorbed so much Afghan dirt that they looked like a good camo uniform.
Months so that they would become crusted with dirt and brown.
Ah, yes.
And then they would just become khakis.
The khakis were better camouflage than the
Khaki
UCPs.
is a better camouflage. Just straight khaki uniforms or straight coyote brown uniform is a better camouflage pattern than UCP.
That's unfortunate.
I mean, it's funny, but actually the ACU. But here's the problem with that method, right? Yes, after 6 months, it does produce a perfect camo, right? Because you kind of wash it out, but the staining remains, and so all the colors shift towards your natural environment. The problem is it takes you 2 months to get there, and most high intensity combat operations last fewer than 2 months. The invasion of Iraq was a 3-week ordeal, so. The uniforms would never have even gotten to that point, right, to be camouflaged well enough to be acceptable. God, I hated the UCP. Let's see if we talk about the other things that are wrong with it.
I suppose it would blend in with other people that were wearing the same pattern.
That's not the point of camouflage, though.
No, it's not.
The Army spent $5 billion researching this camo pattern, and it didn't blend in with anything.
That's because they tried a billion different patterns and then selected this one arbitrarily. Now, here's the thing that he isn't getting to yet, but I think is worth talking about. The other changes to the actual uniform, not the camo pattern, which was horrendous. The Army combat uniform was an absolute friggin' joke. It was the worst uniform maybe ever designed, right? So, and I actually went through basic training, right? I struck in the military we call it a drug deal, a sort of handshake backwater type deal, where I would actually go to basic training as though I were a National Guardsman, immediately sign a contract to become an ROTC cadet, train as an officer, and commission, and be discharged from the National Guard, right? So I go, okay, I'm going to get this basic training in, come, go, be done. So I'm in basic training, and that is the first class issued entirely ACUs. And then when I left in 2013 was the first time they were issuing Multicam to active duty, or OCP. So I was firmly in the ACU window. Now, the original ACU uniform was straight trash for a bunch of reasons. First, the Army was like, we want Velcro everything. Which sort of makes sense. No, it doesn't make any sense. Because think about the Velcro tags that are on your uniform. One tag says U.S. Army. That's who you work for. But since no other military uses UCP, why would you ever have U.S. Army be removable? No one else could possibly be you wearing that uniform but the U.S. Army, right? Next, you had your name. Your name is pretty consistent, right? Okay, soldiers get married, some of them change their names, got it, right? But do they change it so frequently that it has to be Velcroed on? Are you changing your name every day? Same with your rank. Yes, rank sometimes changes, but it changes once every 3 years. So not exactly important to have it be able to be Then, of course, you have your unit patch. This is the unit that you're serving with. This could change as little as every year. Okay, that's possible, right? But next, you have your flag, the American flag, the country that you're serving. Is that so variable that it needs to be Velcroed on? Like, we can't sew it on. It's, you gotta Velcro it on, right? Like, this is preposterous. And then your combat patch, right? Which you serve with a unit in combat. That's it. You have it for your career, right? Some people deployed like 5 times and they have 5 combat patches and they change it up as a fashion statement. But the uniform is not meant to be a fashion statement. So, and you have to think, right? The pockets there are pockets on the shoulders, there are breast pockets, and there is a zippered front that has a flap that's also secured by Velcro. Now, I want to remind you, to access these pockets on the shoulders, which are well positioned, you have to open them, but they're secured with Velcro. So I have been on combat patrols on like LPOPs, like, tactical stealth environment, and had to go to open my pocket, get out my hand sanitizer, and wash my hands or pull out a IR or a notepad or whatever. Right? And then you close it back up. Same as if you need something from the other pocket. As the Velcro peels. So it's preposterous. And the pants, they were also flammable. The uniforms were also flammable, which is a problem when Humvees kept getting blown up and catching on fire. So when I was deployed, they had to issue new flame-resistant ACUs. But they were so hard to get, and the crotches were so weak, right? The crotches had not been reinforced in any ACU, that they tore constantly. And because we could only wear flame-retardant uniforms, that meant that I spent 2 months with a giant hole in the crotch of my uniform, just sort of hoping nobody asked too many questions about why my only pair of pants had a gigantic hole in it, right? This was just idiotically designed. Oh, and it gets worse. They had cargo pockets in the pants, right? But the cargo pockets were secured with Velcro. Like, they're cargo pockets. They're meant to hold bulky crap, Like, I would stuff like 3 cans of Rip It in there. And then but it's held by 2 little patches of Velcro like this. That Velcro got worn out in like a week. So I just had these pockets flapping open, right, that couldn't hold anything. It boggled the mind that no one had tested this uniform, right? Or they had, and they just hadn't listened to the commentary. It was just a monument to, like, the Army bureaucracies, like, it's so much stupider than its component parts. Like, you could randomly grab a soldier or randomly grab a general in the Pentagon, and they would be able to design a better uniform. But because it had to be done, like, every office, bureaucracy, lab, researcher, and general had to sign off on it, every person wouldn't feel happy unless they got to add their special favorite little twist to the uniform. And the result was that every person had to put their special little touch on it. And so it became this monument to nonsense compromise.
It's absolutely terrible. It is, in my opinion, the worst military uniform ever designed. And I am putting that over the British military uniform that was just a bright red jacket.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. The worst. The worst.
That's quite a stance to take.
There is statistical, numerical proof that UCP's got soldiers killed.
Did you need to get that off your chest? How much you hated the Army's uniforms?
Big news!
They recently changed the pattern.
Yes, they're all wearing multicam now.
Is it 4 colors? They have concrete, dirt, a color that doesn't exist, and red?
No, multicam is mud, dirt, tree, and green.
Unless the tree part is a maple leaf in autumn, I don't see...
It's just got bright red. It's just got the Canadian flag and just spots on it.
Actually, they do have...
It's so funny because it was clear clear that people were just waiting for the multicam uniform. And actually, it was such a controversy. The ACU development, the $5 billion for a uniform that was terrible on almost every level, that Congress mandated that the Army will never develop its own uniform ever again. They said you cannot license a uniform because here's the funny thing, sad and hilarious, is that the exact same process, a terrible uniform unsuited to the environment, picked out sort of arbitrarily by a leader with like it's so poor that it's almost corrupt, was exactly what the Afghans did, which makes sense because their mentor was the U.S. Army, and they taught them that the best way to pick a uniform is to do so with no basis in reality or data whatsoever. Anyway, Congress found that the Army did this and then mandated that they have to use a pattern they already have the license for. And basically, as many soldiers, as many military branches as humanly possible have to adapt it, right? The Marines, as always, successfully fought that off. But that's how, remember, in the 90s, everyone wore BDUs, right? That wasn't because the branches wanted to all wear the same thing. It's because Congress made them. And Congress basically had to make them again. They said, you will wear this. This is your uniform. You must already own it. And the Army said, okay, we'll do it. And now, because they got forced to actually pick a uniform, right, by an act of Congress, turns out the whole world loves it. The whole world's like, this is the camo we've been waiting for, right? This is perfect. And they all adopt it. Even Russia, even the United States enemy, geopolitical rival, enemy is a strong word, geopolitical rival has to just be like, guys, that multicam's pretty tight. Spetsnaz in Syria are rocking multicam. That's where we're at.
Have that in the Canadian uniforms. They have little
Canadian flags. I know, I love it. Oh man, Cad Pat's a great uniform.
Why don't we have anything like that in the American uniform?
Marines have that.
We have the Eagle Globe and Anchor everywhere.
Yeah,
but,
you have the Eagle Globe and Anchor.
But that doesn't celebrate America in general. We need cheeseburgers on our patterns.
Cheeseburgers and footballs.
Just little pieces of bacon and bowls with macaroni and cheese.
Why is that the stereotypical American thing for you?
Oh no, it's just bologna and mac and cheese. That's all it is.
I said stereotypically American, not stereotypically
Hey, mac and cheese is great.
gross.
Fine, bologna and government cheese.
Hey, American cheese is also great. Guys, thank you for joining me on this. Wow, this may be a record for me. We are at 37 minutes of a 10-minute video. That means I 4x'd this video, but you could tell, deep down, I just needed to get those stories off my chest. So, I'm glad you guys were able to join me for this. I should parse these stories out and just put them out on the podcast as my own campfire stories, right? Maybe just retell them independently. I don't know. Anyway, guys, first off, thank you for joining me on this. Thanks to my channel members, right, for supporting the channel, right? That's that join button right next to the subscribe button. And channel members get access to exclusive rooms on the Discord. They get access to submit and vote on my Friday video. And when I play multiplayer games, they get priority access to join my party. All awesome things, and they hugely support the channel. Plus, they actually get emojis in the chat when I live stream, so I'm going to try to give them some even more fun emojis, right? But the Discord itself is free. It's a great time. You guys should absolutely join. The links to all that are down below. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time.